Do all lit fic books have to end with an unhappy ending? Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to the last video I'm going to be making about any of the books related to the Booker Prize. This week I read The Safekeep by Yael van der Wouden, and I want to go ahead and do a review of it. I think I've done a review, at least in part, of most of the other books that I've read that were on the Booker long list. I think this is the fourth book I will have read that's on the Booker short list. And I'll just say up front, I think it's a good book. I think compared to some of the other books I've seen that I know are on the short list, I think this one deserves to be there. I think it's really well written. I think it's very engrossing the way it's written. I think its characters are fairly well drawn. I think occasionally the prose itself is beautiful, and I definitely feel like the author does a great job of creating the atmosphere of the house in which most of it takes place. So essentially this story involves a woman named Isabelle who lives in a house which she's essentially inherited from her mother, who's just died. She has two brothers. I think one's older, one's younger, who ownership of the house actually belongs to her older brother, and that becomes kind of a point of contention to go on. But for all intents and purposes, the house belongs to Isabelle. She's the one who lives there. She's the one who takes care of it. And essentially, she keeps it just as it was when her mother was alive. She's almost more like a curator of the house, or somebody whose job she feels is to preserve the house and the ways in which the house worked. She is essentially alone. There's a housekeeper who comes in to help clean, who she is not particularly nice to. She's paranoid about things being stolen. She seems to have some hazy memories of some unpleasantness involving the house back in her past, but for the most part it seems as though she, in her, I think, early 30s, is just going to live out the rest of her life in this house alone. She does have kind of a boyfriend, but she's not really all that fond of him. This is all upset when she has, one of her irregular dinners with her brother. She goes into town, she has dinner with her brother, and her older brother introduces her and her younger brother to a young woman who he's dating, and apparently her older brother has lots of dates and gets involved with lots of women. And this woman's name is Eva, and she is essentially the exact opposite of Isabelle in every way you can imagine. As a matter of fact, Isabelle doesn't like her, and neither apparently does her younger brother. They think that she is essentially lacks class, sophistication, intelligence, and they're almost, during that first meeting, they're almost mocking her to her face. And that when that dinner goes on, Isabelle goes back to the house, and she assumes that this will be the last she sees of Eva, that she'll be one of her brother's conquests who is quickly discarded. But her brother then calls later and says, "Hey, I have to go out of the country for a while on business. I'll be gone for a month or so, and I want you to let Eva stay at the house." Well, Isabelle doesn't want this, but the truth of the matter is she doesn't have any real choice. So we get then, Isabelle and Eva move into this house together, and then a relationship develops between them. Isabelle is not happy to have Eva there at all. She's convinced that Eva is stealing from her. And at some point, their relationship becomes a sexual romantic relationship. And you should read the book to discover that part. And then, as you should probably expect in a book in which this kind of physical romantic relationship begins between these two women, something comes, since it all happens like the first 100 or so pages, something comes along that ruins all that, which I won't spoil for you here. And then we move forward and we learn lots of other things about the house, about Isabelle, about Eva, that really kind of change the perception of the story. Let me go ahead and say now, I think this is probably definitely spoiler territory. So, if you don't want any of the books spoiled for you, stop watching now and just accept that I think this is a good book with interesting characters that's well written and creates a real definite atmosphere that I think it makes it a good book. But moving on forward, spoiler-wise, a lot of the events that kind of change our understanding of the relationship between Isabelle and Eva have to do with the Holocaust. And the story is set in the Netherlands, so it takes place in the Dutch countryside. And one of the things that I didn't really know was that the Dutch were among the most efficient, enthusiastic deporters and rounders up of Jews living in the Netherlands, of any of the nations that the Nazis occupied. And so the percentage of of Dutch Jews who were ended up in camps is relatively high, and that plays a role in the outcome of the story, and that plays a role in kind of giving you this perception of Isabelle and Eva and their relationship and the house and all those things. That really is revealed through a series of diary entries that Eva has been keeping in her diary for a long period of time. We kind of learn a lot of the backstory and a lot of the mysteries, that Isabelle doesn't quite remember or understand from her childhood are cleared up here too. But those events surrounding the Holocaust essentially are part of what breaks Isabelle and Ava's relationship apart. And when it breaks apart, Isabelle is initially determined for it to stay that way, but after she reads the diary, she becomes determined to kind of heal this relationship, to essentially gain control of the house, to get her brother to let her have the house so that she and Eva can live in the house for the rest of their days and be happy. The house will be literally a safekeep where they can keep the house safe and live there together and be in love, and all those kinds of things will take place. And that's kind of what Isabelle is after. Now, super spoiler territory here. What I've seen a lot of people criticize about the book is they don't like the ending. They don't think the last section is necessary. I think what they mean is they think it could have just ended with the diary entries, which explain, a lot of the backstory, as I said, of the novel and the relationship between the characters and what's actually going on that you may not have picked up on. And I think, maybe what people don't like about it is that the book ends up having a kind of happy ending. There is a reconciliation against probably all odds between Isabelle and Eva, and I think this is the thing, I suspect this is the thing that people don't like, that it ends on this happy note, which kind of leads me back to the question I asked initially. Do we just expect literary fiction to end in misery and unhappiness, and do we hold it against literary fiction when it ends on a happy story? Do we automatically denigrate it because we associate happy endings with things we don't consider to be literature? And I think that's a fairly problematic approach to books. I think it's okay for work of literary fiction to end on a happy note, or at least on an optimistic note, as this one does. Anyway, if you've watched all the way through, you've seen the answer to the question. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and as always, thank you for watching.